Remember what I said about Twitter and how if you tweet, then you'll be tweeting? Well, there's actually a prize involved. If you've been to Disrupt, you know what it is, and that it's not as exciting as you'd think it would be, but it's still a prize, so tweet away, and we'll be watching. In the meantime, we're going to get to our next panel. It's called, Is It Time to Stick a Fork in Bitcoin? God, I hope so. I'm so sick of talking about Bitcoin, but these guys aren't. So if you're into that, get ready. Please welcome our next guests, Wences Casares from Xapo, Nathaniel Popper from the New York Times, Bobby Lee from BTCChina, and our moderator, John Biggs.
You go there. Hi, I'm John Biggs, and we're selling Bitcoin today. Do we know what Bitcoin is, everybody? 3 people.
3 people.
These guys, this guy right here, he loves it. Everybody knows what Bitcoin is?
Ask who knows Satoshi. You know.
What are we asking?
Satoshi.
I think
is Satoshi here? That would be really cool if he showed up.
First row. Cool.
So I'm John Biggs. I'm a reporter. There's also another reporter down here, Nathaniel Popper. He wrote a book about Bitcoin. A book, if you're not familiar, is a piece of paper, multiple pieces of paper put between another piece of paper. It's closed up, and you can read inside of it. So he wrote one of these, which is fascinating.
I folded all the pieces of paper.
Bobby Lee, founder of BTCC now. It used to be Bitcoin China, but she wanted to be inclusive.
BTC China, now we're BTCC.
Okay. And Wences Casares, founder of Xapo, and you're a fintech ninja, right?
A fintech guy.
Fintech guy. Okay, for those who weren't familiar with Bitcoin generally, let's give them a 3-word description. You guys all have a 3-word description to give them of Bitcoin. Go for it, Nathaniel.
All right, I might take 5 words, but...
No, 3.
Okay. A giant spreadsheet in the sky with money on it.
Okay, we're gonna leave the smaller words out of that. That's fine. All right.
How about the world's first digital asset?
Okay.
The best form of money we've ever seen.
Best form of money we've ever seen. Now, is it all going to fail? What's the state of current Bitcoin? Are we all going to? Are my 4 Bitcoin safe? I'm asking you guys.
Depends where you have it.
Where should I put it? What's the state of Bitcoin? Describe it to me, guys.
I think that as an industry, we are paying the price for a hype that there was around Bitcoin about 2 years ago. Ironically, I see much better investment in infrastructure that is really needed in Bitcoin going on right now as opposed to the hype. And just like, I think we attracted a lot of interest, a lot of capital, more than $600 million in a very short period of time. And everybody's expectations was that this was going to change in 6 months, and that didn't happen. This is going to take longer. We're paying the price for that right now. Hopefully, things will begin to get on track soon. But I could also imagine seeing Silicon Valley sort of give up on Bitcoin before things get better. So even though I hope things get better soon, I can imagine them getting worse before they get better.
So you're saying that a lot of VCs got excited about an idea that's too young and then expected really massive returns on it?
Yep.
Never happened before.
That's never happened before. It seems like this might be an unusual thing. Bobby, why don't you describe your state? Because you're in China, you're in Asia, essentially.
Well, it's sort of like they say in Charles Dickens' book. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. What's great about today is that we actually have Bitcoin. The world now, we're living in really great times. We actually have a digital asset class that is fully decentralized and trustless that we could have just on a computer, on a mobile phone. That's never been done before, so that's the best of times. In the case of Bitcoins, we're also in a year or almost 2 years of bear market. So the Bitcoin price hit, over $1,000. Now it's back down to 200 some. For a lot of people, they lost faith. They think it's going to go down to 0, which I don't think so. So it's sort of, we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting things ahead of us in the next few years.
And a bear market is good because they're cuddly, right?
That's right.
Okay, good.
It's a chance for all those of you who didn't raise your hand, who didn't have Bitcoin, a chance for you to look at it right now.
So a bear market is in this case, is good because it's cheap.
It's
you
cheap.
can buy a lot of Bitcoin. Unless you got in early and you bought it at 1, and then that's a whole different story. Then you have a Tesla and a Tesla for your Tesla. All right. Nathaniel, what do you think?
I think that what's happened is that Bitcoin has been a reminder about what money is. Money is about trust. And Bitcoin was initially sold as a trustless system, and I think that's why a lot of libertarians got into it. It's why it was attractive to a lot of people, because it promised this thing that was run by code, and you didn't have to trust humans. And I think what the Bitcoin experiment has reminded people so far is that money always involves trust. You can't get away from trust with money. And money is about knowing that somebody else is going to want this tomorrow, or thinking that somebody else is going to want this tomorrow. And with Bitcoin, there have been a lot of things that have made people not trust it. And people got excited about the idea, but you have to get more and more people to trust this thing. And I think that the underlying code of Bitcoin is still very strong. It hasn't been broken, and that's something remarkable. That's why Wall Street is looking at it today. But for people to use it as money, they have to trust it. And if people trust it even less than they trust it today, the price could go down much further. And if there is a problem with the code, if the cryptography behind it is proved vulnerable at some point, it could become worth much less. But on the other hand, there's a lot of smart people putting a lot of money into this right now. Again, as I mentioned, Wall Street right now is plowing lots of resources into this. And so that's certainly reason to think that the flaws will be corrected, and this still has somewhere to go.
So what was the biggest problem back when all this first started, when Mt. Gox exploded? You yourself, you put in about $100,000 to basically torture test Bitcoin early on in the blockchain. You put in some money to do this. What happened after that? Because you actually did your diligence, and then all of a sudden Mt. Gox was robbed by children.
I spent some time and money testing the robustness of Bitcoin, the protocol. Mt. Gox is a service on top of the protocol, and my assessment of the protocol is the one that Charlie and Nathaniel just briefly mentioned, which is the protocol is robust. And you can always hack a service on top of the protocol, and that's what happened to Mt. Gox. Either they were fraudulent or incompetent, but if you have a problem with your webmail provider, it doesn't mean necessarily that the email protocol is broken. It may be that your provider is not up to par.
Okay, so the providers are getting stronger, the providers are getting better.
Yeah, significantly so.
Well, you yourself, you're putting Bitcoin private keys you're shooting them into space, or where are you putting them?
We keep Bitcoin private keys we keep them offline.
In what actual location, like a physical,
we keep them offline in
where is that?
vaults.
In good locations.
In good locations.
Where do you keep the keys to these places?
They are in vaults. The main vault is in Switzerland.
So I could go to. Do you have the password to get into the vault?
I cannot do that alone. It requires a lot of people.
So when you guys leave, we'll talk about it. So if you guys want to get out of here. No? This is a sad. Is everybody enjoying this? You like Bitcoins? Yes? Let's be happy about Bitcoins. Because we're not going to stick a fork in it, right? We're not going to. It's still going to happen.
We've decided we're not sticking a fork in it, right? Okay, good.
So, do you like the way Nathaniel portrayed you? You're portrayed as a Adonis-like half god, half man who comes down and does amazing things, and you're a Jet Li-style action hero in the Bitcoin. You didn't read this part yet, but do you guys like the book that he wrote?
I think I did like the book. I think the book does a very good job at being at the same time entertaining. It reads like an interesting, fun novel, and it's very educational. And because Bitcoin has a very short story, if you read his book, you get up to speed in everything that there's to know about Bitcoin. That may be impossible to do in 10 more years, but right now he does a great job at getting you up to speed in a very entertaining way.
And you didn't finish it, right?
I liked it. I'm in the middle of the book, Digital Gold. Have you guys read it yet? Digital Gold?
Everyone. Yeah.
Oh, you should buy it. Get him to sign it off stage.
Bobby likes it because he hasn't gotten to a part where he talks about you yet.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So I'm saving
do you have
that
any
for the
stories from researching the book? Was there any like a Bitcoin bacchanal where everybody's naked or anything?
There were a lot of Bitcoin bacchanals. I mean, the book opens at this event up in Tahoe. Actually, the latest edition of it was just this weekend, a private event held by Pantera Capital that brought together a lot of the big people. And what's interesting is that this event, held at Dan Moorhead's vacation house with his $1 million speedboat out on the lake, is a gathering of these early guys who, many of whom were libertarians, scattered around the globe, a lot of them not terribly social people. And then you see all the phases of Bitcoin's development. And that was really what drew me to write the book, is that it's a great story. If nothing else, if it goes away tomorrow, the fact that this thing came out of nowhere 6 years ago and became a global phenomenon and something that people actually spent money on is crazy. And but at the same time, I think to understand it, and to understand really any technology, it really is useful to understand the people who are behind it and the people who are deciding to use it. Bitcoin is frequently a very forbidding topic for people. You get into the cryptography, you get into the code of it, and it is very difficult to understand. But if you understand people like Bobby and Wences and understand why it made them so excited. I mean, this guy, basically left his job. He sold his company to do this. What about Bitcoin could get people so excited? And it wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of different things. In Wences's case, he grew up in Argentina. You can tell us about it. Bobby, he grew up the grandson of immigrants who escaped the communist revolution. And those historical experiences played into why Bitcoin was attractive. And very different things in very different places. And that tells you a lot about the world, even if you're not going to buy a Bitcoin. And it certainly tells you a lot about why Bitcoin could matter and what it could do in the future.
Well, it will matter for sure. I don't get the wrong idea. I don't think. Do you think Bitcoin's going to go away?
I think it could. I don't think either of you think that. And I think there are enough people who don't think that it gives it a very good chance of not going away.
The way I see it is Bitcoin is not going anywhere away the way internet is going away. So if any of you believe the internet might go away, then Bitcoin might go away. As long as the internet is with us, Bitcoin will be with us, because it's really the world's first and most successful form of electronic money and value that is not controlled by any government or system. So Bitcoin is already moderately successful, I would say. And the reason it is moderately successful is because people actually value this. So the genie's out of the bottle.
I think that I can imagine a couple of ways in which Bitcoin fails or disappears. And then there are the things I don't know that I don't know. So I would say that I'm the most biased Bitcoin person I can imagine, the most pro-Bitcoin person I can imagine. And even then, I always tell people that they shouldn't own an amount of Bitcoin they cannot afford to lose, because I think there is a non-trivial chance that that goes to zero. And by non-trivial, I say 20%. But again, I'm very, very biased, right? And if there is a 20% chance that you can lose that money, you should not own an amount of that you cannot afford to lose. At the same time, I think that there is a higher than 50% chance that a Bitcoin is worth more than $1 million. So today it's at 200, so it's a 4,000 times the possible upside. So I think it makes sense to have a little bit of Bitcoin, say 1% of your savings in Bitcoin makes a lot of sense, but no more, because it's a super risky investment that has incredible asymmetry.
So has it stopped being a compelling investment for the techno nerds? Is it no longer? If I put a bunch of money into Bitcoin right now, what do you guys think over the next couple months?
I think what it comes down to is, if it succeeds, is it like the internet? Is it like the TCP/IP protocol? Or is it like DARPANET? I think that's actually the big question that faces Bitcoin right now.
That's fair.
Is it the predecessor to the thing that matters, or is it the thing that matters, right? There is, you remember at the beginning you said, what is Bitcoin? It's this decentralized ledger, essentially spreadsheet in the sky that everybody keeps. And that's the idea that right now a lot of people are putting a lot of money into. And I think that genie is definitely out of the bottle, and people are going to find ways to use this in exciting ways. And the question is, are they going to use Bitcoin's decentralized spreadsheet, or are they going to use a different kind of spreadsheet that they build
But that's
or that somebody else
but
built?
that's called a private database, and it has existed for a long time. What's new about Bitcoin is that it's a decentralized, trustless ledger. The second you do it your own, it's called a private database, and they have existed for a very long time. There's nothing revolutionary about that.
But Visa keeps a private database that they keep. The banks currently seem to believe that if all of them, if 20 of them or 50 of them are maintaining their records together, and if one of them goes down, when Visa goes down, you're screwed. If in a system where 50 people are keeping the ledger, one of them goes down, you still have 49 of them. That's a little bit more robust. Each time you add somebody in, you get a little bit more robust.
Instead of running the database yourself, you run it in a joint venture with others. It's a slight innovation, but I think it has nothing to do with a blockchain. Right?
The difference is that in the existing banking system in Visa, the so-called private ledger, is the rest of us cannot elect to join the party. It's a boys club, right? Whereas with Bitcoin, anyone can join and become a participant in
but
the
this
ledger.
is, to me, this debate that we're having right here is the debate over whether Bitcoin is going to matter or whether the technology that Bitcoin has introduced into the world, that Satoshi Nakamoto introduced in the world, whether that's what's going to matter. And I know
you're
that
generally into the blockchain. You're into the blockchain as a concept, or are you into Bitcoin as a commodity?
I think that no matter what, Bitcoin itself is likely to continue on as long as the technology, like these things can both happen. The banks can create their private databases if they want, and Bitcoin can continue on. The question is how much each of them draws in. Right now, there are still a lot of people using Bitcoin itself for illegal transactions. It's not the only reason to use it, but there are people using it for that. And if, say, the banks go over here and create their own thing, people are still going to want to use Bitcoin. There are still good reasons to use Bitcoin. So you can have them both. The question is, does this actually end up feeding into this so you get the $1 million valuation?
So let's do this. Why don't we give these guys some startup ideas? What do you guys down the line, Nathaniel? I feel like you may feel you have some verve to you right now. What are you guys going down the line? What are the startups that you see connecting to the blockchain, connecting to Bitcoin in the near future? What are you expecting to see? Helping the unbanked, transparent systems for money transfer, et cetera, et cetera. What needs to happen for the next for the next Bitcoin to pop up on the scene, or for the next generation, or for the next iteration of Bitcoin?
I'll go first. So my suggestion is a lot of startup people here. That's great to see all the entrepreneurs here in the Bay Area, San Francisco. I would say, as you do startups, as you do product ideas, really get into something that you're really passionate about. So for me, it was Bitcoin. For you, it could be something else. It could be blockchain. It could be something, mobile apps or whatever. So really, it's, running a startup is hard. Being an entrepreneur is hard. So definitely go in an area where you're really passionate about. And for us, it was Bitcoin. So we're still very excited about it, despite the fact that the industry has wavered a little bit.
What do you want to see, Wences, to make Bitcoin get to that next?
No, I don't know that I have an idea. I think that the things that have to happen, there's $600 million that have gone into Bitcoin companies, and we are beginning to see the infrastructure that those $600 million are building, but it's just the beginning. So I think that that's happening. I think that there are some interesting things that can happen either on top of Bitcoin or copying the Bitcoin model. And some of the most interesting things I think are around identity, either building identity on top of the blockchain or creating a separate blockchain for identity. And I think there are some companies doing very, very interesting stuff there.
What do you think?
If someone had come to us 6 years ago and said, hey guys, you have unlimited resources to work on the problem of solving money, it would have never occurred to me to work on building a public good, right? I would have worked within the constraints that I've always worked, which is you create a company, that company has intellectual property, you raise money, you have a board, there's a governance, and then you provide a service. The way Bitcoin solved that problem is brilliant. It has none of that. It's basically developing as a public good. So when you think about what other problems out there would benefit from an approach that is a public good that is shared between all of us, and there's a lot of risk from trusting it to any one company to solve it, I think identity is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, to me, in fact, the near-term promise for Bitcoin seems to be less in money, Money's where it gets really dangerous and you can really lose a lot of somebody's money, as Mt. Gox showed. Maybe if you start with sort of lower impact uses of Bitcoin, and I'm not saying that keeping somebody's identity is a lower impact use, but to me, the real interesting thing about the blockchain and the Bitcoin is, again, this idea of a spreadsheet in the sky and the notion that maybe one day sort of every transaction and every interaction will be recorded on this spreadsheet. And that, I mean, I heard about a VC company that's using their own kind of coin as a kind of political capital. If you want to meet somebody, you have to spend some of it. If you introduce somebody, you get some of it. It goes up in value.
So it's more of the internet of
value.
Of value.
Internet of value.
So we can move away from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is, we can stick a fork in it.
If you are a Visa executive or a Bank of America executive or a Wells Fargo executive, it has become very fashionable to say, I really, really like the blockchain. I'm very interested in the blockchain, but I'm not interested in Bitcoin, which is the equivalent of saying, I really like the browser, but I don't like the internet, right? It's ridiculous. Those people don't want to be the ones who didn't see the internet coming, and they want to say something nice about it without saying something nice about it.
There's always AOL.
Yeah.
All right, friends and neighbors.
But they don't realize that the blockchain does not work without Bitcoin. The blockchain is the first decentralized, trustless database because the miners maintain it, and the miners do so because they get paid in Bitcoin. So even though there are a lot of nice use cases on top of that, none of them work without the miners being paid with Bitcoin.
All right, Nathaniel, Bobby, Wences, this is beautiful. I love this stuff. Were these guys any good? Are we happy? All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
friends
Tom.
and neighbors. Let's head out.